All right, so your data has been successfully zapped from Asset Calc Go to Asset Calc. In a perfect world, you'd have completely filled in every data cell, every data field back in Asset Calc Go, completely scrubbed it, QA'd it, zap it to Asset Calc, and you're completely done. Odds are, very high odds, that scenario is never going to happen. You're going to have some work to do back here in Asset Calc home base, some scrubbing and some finishing of your data. So show you a couple modules here, the biggest things to look for, the biggest things you can do to get this thing in a finished state. Use the power and the tools of Asset Calc that you've always known, that you're familiar with, at your disposal here to get this data finished up. Keep in mind you can change these columns to anything you want to be by clicking this button here. Anything you want to either eliminate the noise by removing some of these items, or bring some items in that you want to see. Click and unclick all the stuff you want to see. Condition is going to be something you definitely want. So you're going to have your own personal way of reviewing data. Use this button. Very powerful. Another very powerful tool is to sort by column heading. So in this little session, we're going to focus on getting rid of the placeholders. That's like commandment number one. You can't let placeholders pass through. These things have to be linked to a cost library item. So if you sort by master cost, it's going to bring all the placeholders up to the top because alphanumerically this parenthesis comes first. So absolutely, you got to get rid of these placeholders. So I'll do a couple examples here, maybe one MEP item and one architectural. Let's start with the architectural. For some reason, when we did the window, we didn't fully define it. We did call it a window, but we didn't go that extra step and use the drop down in Asset Calc Go. So not the end of the world. You can fully link it up here. Clicking on the window, I get to the standard Asset Calc work screen we all know and love. So here you have two buttons here that let you link this thing up. If you push the first button, select Master Cost, this is going to send you to the entire universe of items in the Asset Calc library. Probably don't want to do that. We built in some smarts here, so let me get out of there and go back into the window. If you click this orange magnet, it's going to send you to B 2021. It's going to send you to the windows ahead of time. Well, we have some goofiness going on here with the uniformat category. Little glitch in some reason, but for the purpose of this session, I'm not going to let that slow us down. Let's say it was a double glazed 12 square foot window on I think we said this was a 2-story building, so this is a very popular selection, double glazed 12 square foot, 1 and 2 stories. Select that. Now our window is fully defined here. One note, looking at both your photo here, hopefully you did take a photo of the window, and looking at your helper label will let you know what this thing is supposed to be. We did fill in the condition in the field, so we don't have to do that, and just go up from top down, making sure all this is filled in. Fair, let's say it's not broken per se. Life cycle renewal, nothing wrong with that. And you're in service. You enter this in if you knew it. If you knew for a fact this window was installed during, say, a 2004 renovation, you enter that in. If you don't know that, leave it blank. So let's say we have no idea when this window was installed, but we want it to have about half its life left. We could type in, leave that blank, an effective age of 15. And then we get a remaining life of 15. Year schedule, this is kind of a fancy advanced trick. It's mostly used to move when the year these things are popping after the client provides feedback. So as an assessor, as a PM, you usually don't want to mess with this. Use this piece to put this in the year you want it. Because this is a window, you don't need to fill in these inventory type items. Click that button, remove it. This is only valid for MEP stuff. Don't forget quantity and cost up here. We did count the windows in the field. There are 64 of them. Quantity is the biggie to worry about. Over here, we have a cost that makes sense. If the window was in poor or failed condition, you would need a comment here. That's not the case. So you can leave this blank unless you did have some value-added information to tell. In this case, we're going to assume that's not the case. Last thing, because this came in as a placeholder from Asset Calc Go, it automatically checks this box. There are a few things that check this box, one of which is if it's not fully defined as a placeholder. So unclick that. It's not a placeholder anymore. You don't want the reviewer to spend extra time looking at this. And I probably should have mentioned this first. The photo of the window comes in as excluded from photo log because that's how it was defaulted back in Asset Calc Go, and because it wasn't changed there. If you changed your mind and really wanted this window to appear in the photo log, you can click that button to toggle it in, toggle it away to your heart's content. No, you can do it here, but they come in. Asset photos come in defaulted as excluded. And in this particular case, I see no reason to change that. Let me save and close this one, and I'll do an MEP item. Let's say it's this pool heater. I'm going to click the magnet. And this defaulted me to swimming pool stuff. And we can see we have two flavors of pool heater here. Let's say it was a 350 MBH for the purposes of this exercise. So the closest thing I have is 300. If this was somewhere in the middle of the range, say 500, I would definitely pick the more expensive item, the 750. If this was 350, it's much closer to this one, so that's the one I would pick. This thing is happy now. It's linked to a very specific Asset Calc ID. So the big warning flags have gone away. Up here in the attributes field, sometimes this thing appears as a range, sometimes it's a discrete number. If it's a range, like a lot of times for MEP, it'll say something like that, right? And if this was somewhere in that range, there's no reason to change that here in the attributes field. This is a key workflow change from recently. More on that in a second. However, if the thing you have is not within this range, please correct it. We just don't want this to be wrong or incorrect. So because this is 350, this is not correct anymore. So I am going to correct it here. And jumping ahead here to show you why not necessarily leaving a range here is a sin anymore. We have added back our capacity field. This for way too long, this thing was missing. So this is a field that it directly is on Asset Calc Go. It's directly in Asset Calc. This thing is going to get fed to facility dude. This is a discrete data point, and for MEP, it is absolutely essential. So I'm sorry, we said this was 350 MBH. Make sure this capacity field is filled out and accurate. Absolutely critical for MEP items. Okay, so we know this is a little bit of redundant data entry right now. There's some imperfections in our cost library. It's not fully parameterized the way we want it to be. So we're going to have a little transition period here for a few months where it feels like you might be doing redundant data both here and down there. We're going to fix that very soon. For the time being, this is our best way to get by. You got to fill out this capacity field down here and just make sure this isn't telling any lies. So it's not. Whoops. There goes that crazy mouse again. All right, so make sure all this stuff is filled out. Your report section is probably 9.8, not 9.8. So change this to whatever it is. We just needed this to sort in Asset Calc to be the bottom. Much more in report section numbers soon. In general, they're going away. Everything's getting uniformatized. So let's say this was in section 6.5 of your whatever current master you're using. Just make sure it's right and matches. Condition, let's say this thing was fair again. Or actually, let's say it's poor. Drive some of those points home. Now, it would have been better if back in the app I would have hit that red exclamation point, but let's say I didn't do that, but I got home and looking at this photo and remembering everything the POC told me about the pool heater, it's not in good shape. So I'm going to call it poor here. I'm going to change my mind and say it's an immediate need here. It's a performance integrity issue. It's not working. I got to tell a story that makes sense. Poor, failed. Let's say for sure this thing had a stamp on its data plate that told me it was 2008. So under normal conditions, this thing would have 5 years of life left in it, according to the EUL charts. But let's say this thing was in really bad shape. It had accelerated aging. So I'm not going to change this data point. It's 2008. That's a fact. It's a known fact. I'm not changing it. But prime mission of you as an assessor is, when necessary, is to change this RUL. And in a case where it's broken, that is one of those times. So I want to replace that pool heater in the first year. To do that, I got to make the effective age 14. Now it gives me an RUL of 1, exactly where I want to be. I'm going to leave the year schedule alone. Make sure my quantity is okay. For most MEP items, you're going to want this to be 1. You're inventorying MEP items on a 1-to-1 basis. Getting down to the asset tag, a lot of times a pool heater is not going to have a tag on it. If that's the case, hit no tag plate found. In general, we don't want any of these fields to be blank, because facility dude is going to ask, why is that cell blank? Did you just forget to fill it in, or you couldn't read it, you couldn't find it? What's the deal? So going forward, when you can't find it or read it or get to the tag, use these pick list items. It's going to keep the client and the reviewer off of everyone's back. The one exception to that is barcode. If we're not reading barcodes or sticking barcodes on the item as part of scope, you do want to leave this field blank. And we're going to add some instruction over here to that effect very soon. So that's the only one of these you should be leaving blank. Manufacturer, yeah, I didn't put a fake data plate on this one, so we're just going to make it up. The manufacturer list, this thing is really, it's getting smarter and smarter, and Asset Calc is really going to get smart. There's going to be a whole MEP encyclopedia built behind it. Right now, that's not quite the case, but we do have a pick list of kind of standard manufacturers. So let's say this was Teledyne Lars. I know that's a boiler manufacturer. Yet somehow it's not in this list. So again, we're not quite as smart as we want to be yet. But let's say that's the, and if it's, I can't remember if it's Lars or Mars. So if I'm making a fool out of myself, please forgive me. Oh man, it's not letting me fill that in. All right, we're calling it Acme. Sorry guys, I'm not perfect. We'll work on that. Model, let's call it BXC 350 to kind of match with its 350 MBH. Let's say we couldn't read this tag, the sun or the salt in the air near the chlorine in the air from the pool near the thing totally ate it up. I'm going to say illegible. You leave this tag blank. Last box, for anything in poor or failed condition, you definitely need a comment here. Encouraged workflow is multiple monitors. Can't stress that enough. You've probably heard me say that before. I can't work on one monitor. I have the Word document open on one monitor, Asset Calc open on the second. I'm writing the report at the same time I do this. I only want to think about this comment once, so I pick the best blurb back in the text, I edit it, I copy it, and paste it over here. For the purposes of time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to write something in here, but let's just say the pool heater is extremely corroded and has failed. Replacement is required. Keep it simple, what's wrong and what you're going to do about it. And then finally, if you did want the reviewer to take a closer look at this, you could leave this checked. If you didn't want to draw extra attention to this item, unclick this box. And save and close. And I'm good. And then you continue phase 1 of your self QAing process, self-scrubbing process, is to get rid of the placeholders. And I'm going to end this session and then get on to another one.